Hey guys, Political Junkie 2414 here, and welcome to my final prediction for the 2022 United States House of Representatives elections. We've come a long way. I haven't really made a lot of House predictions, honestly. I've only made, including this one free, one back in August, one back in September. I meant to do one in October, but I figured, I was putting it off and I was pretty busy. So I figured I would just save it, save the third to be the last. And yeah, we're 3 days away from the election. And look, I'm not gonna, think this is pretty obvious to most people. I'm not gonna lie to you. Republicans are gonna win the House. The question is by how much. If you see in the 538 forecast, Republicans now have a 84% chance of victory. Democrats only have a 16% chance. Um, you know, when we last looked at this, Democrats had a much better chance. It was September 26th. Yeah, Democrats had a 30% chance of winning the House. That's about a 1 in 3 chance. And that was much better from the mere 12% that they had back in June after that Texas special election. It was right before the Dobbs decision. There wasn't really much evidence that Democrats were going to have a shot at winning the House. But as Democrats did really well in a lot of those special elections over the summer, the odds decreased for the GOP, and they got to the point where they were just down to 68%, still in the advantage. We were Republicans were still in the quite clear advantage, but Democrats had a reasonable shot at an upset. But as October came around and the national environment worsened again for Democrats, gas prices went back up a row. The Dobbs effect didn't seem to kind of falter a little bit. Republicans regained a lot of the momentum. Still not where they were back in June, but pretty close, honestly. That being said, I don't think that the House majority is going to be super, super large for the Republican Party, and I do believe the Democrats will win it back in 2 years. That's not a guarantee, of course. I could be wrong. The House could go, to the Republicans by a lot more than what I'm expecting, but I do think that there is going to definitely be a much better shot at Democrats winning House control in 2024 than in 2022. There's a clear pattern that the incumbent party in the White House in presidential election years does better in the House of Representatives. That year than they did in the previous midterm, and that makes sense. So, for example, in 2018, of course, Republicans lost the House, but in 2020, against all odds, they actually came pretty close to knocking Democrats off, in the chamber. If you go back to 2016, 2014, Republicans had their largest majority since Hoover. 2016, not a lot better for Democrats, but they still did make seats even as they lost the presidency and the Senate. And you go back to 2012, after the big tsunami of 2010, Democrats got back up to 200 seats. Not a super impressive showing, but still a pretty big, still a good improvement. And, I could be very wrong about a lot of these seats, but I'm going to take a crack at it. And, I think I have a pretty good feel for most of these competitive races, which are either, the competitive races that are, marked as toss up or ones that are going to be lean to tilt. We might talk about some of the likely races, though. So let's start off in the state of Alabama. We don't have any competitive races here. It'll be interesting after the Supreme Court decision comes through next year, which will, let us know if Alabama is going to get a second Democratic district and upper majority black district, which would, give Democrats, more equal representation. But the Supreme Court is, very conservative, and is probably not going to do that. So Alabama, no competitive races this time. In Alaska, I'm going to keep this as lean deep. Mary Peltola is unstoppable, frankly. She's beating now Nick Begich and Sarah Palin in the individual matchups. She was losing to Begich. There was, some talk like, okay, from Republicans saying, okay, let's get Nick Begich to be the GOP nominee. They never really coalesced around that idea, but, that there was, a shot for Republicans to beat her. And if it's like a massive red wave, I could see Alaska flipping back red. It is, it is at the end of the day still a red state, but Peltola is definitely Sherrod Brown of Alaska in my opinion, and she's doing very well. She's beating Begich and Palin by double digits, and yeah, ranked choice voting is going to make it really hard for Republicans to win here. So I do think, and Alaska is a very, independent state, and Peltola has become even more popular since the August special election. So I could honestly see it being likely, but out of caution, I'm going to put it in lean D. But it's a lot closer to likely D than toss up. In Arizona, Tom O'Halloran is definitely going to go down. He's, a very good incumbent, but his district got a lot more rural, and it's a Trump plus 8 district, and it's probably not going to and in a Republican favoring environment, it's probably not going to stay red. He might even lose by double digits. In the sixth, this is a change from last time. I think I had it as lean Republican. Now have it as likely. And Kirkpatrick, is retiring. I think if she had ran, she may have been able to hold on to it, but it's not certain. It was only barely a Biden district, and I don't really see Democrats really investing in this race. The only, real competitive race, well, I'll talk about Arizona 4. Greg Stannon's probably going to win. He replaced Kirsten Sinema in the House. I don't really see any way he loses unless it's a massive, red wave that we're not, completely expecting. I think we will see a red, ripple. It might even be, like a red wave, but it won't be like 2010 or 2014. But, Stannon's in a pretty blue district. It's pretty suburban, very left trending along with the rest of the Phoenix area, the Phoenix suburbs. It's Biden plus 11, and I think he's going to win by, not that much, but he'll win by definitely, or not definitely, but pretty good, a very high chance that he wins, higher than not chance that he wins by over 5%. In Arizona 1, David Schweikert, I think, is going to pretty he's going to have a pretty good reelection victory, but it is a left trending district. It's Biden plus 2, and I do think that he would likely lose in 2024 with polarization catching up to him, and he's not the best incumbent, but he's definitely in a left trending seat, and he's like a Don Bacon. He'll probably lose next time, but you never know. Arkansas, no competitive races there. California, we got quite a few. Pretty interesting to talk about. So let's go to the ninth district. I think, Josh Harder's definitely, or not definitely. I don't know why I keep wanting to say that, but Josh Harder, I think, is going to win by a lean margin. California 13, I think Democrats are going to hold out with, what's his name? Adam Gray, I think. Yeah, it's Biden plus 11, but, there is a chance for an upset here. There's a pretty good chance. Um, I'm going to also I'll go and do Porter and Levin's districts first. Porter, I'm going to move down. I think, did I have it as likely D last time? I want to look on my sheet because I keep a sheet here so that I don't forget about all the things. No, I had it as lean D. So yeah, so it's lean D. I think that Porter's a pretty good incumbent. She does underperform. She didn't underperform Biden by quite a bit, but I think that she's going to be all right. She's, she's a very strong incumbent, I think, and she's, a great fundraiser. Mike Levin, I'm going to keep that in lean D, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was tilt or an upset. He underperforms even more than Porter, and I think that there is a reasonable shot at Republicans flipping this seat down in Southern California. Um, Michelle Steele, I think she's gonna win re-election. She outperformed by quite a bit. Outperformed a lot of people's expectations in 2020. And she's in a Biden plus 6 district, but she's pretty strong, and Democrats aren't really focusing on her district anymore. Ken, Calvert, and Young Kim are going to win pretty easily, especially Kim. She's an overperformer, and so the fact that it's Biden plus 2 really doesn't mean anything. She'll probably win by, close to double digits, possibly, but obviously under 15. Mike Garcia, I had it as lean D last time, and I know that there are still a lot of people who are saying Christy Smith's going to win. Honestly, the third time might be the charm for her. Garcia, hasn't really, kind of was, you know, he had a lot of trouble in that primary, but he's since, become a lot more moderate. He voted yes on the Respect for Marriage Act, and, Democrats have really pulled out of this district. I think that, there's still a very good chance that Smith wins. It's, Biden plus 13, but I think that Garcia is going to win re-election. I think that there's a very good chance he loses, but he's favored by he's been underestimated quite a bit in polling before, and I think that that there's going to be we don't have a lot of polling for these House races, but I think that Garcia is going to nearly get by. I could be wrong though. Um, in California 22, I'm pretty split on this one, but I'm still gonna have Salas winning. Valadeo has is gonna have trouble getting the Trump base to come out for him. He's gonna outperform Trump by a lot with suburban and moderate voters, with swing voters. But Salas is just such a good candidate. I think that he outran Biden, but by quote like 12 points in 2020 as a state assemblyman. He could very well lose. Valdeo's still very much in this, and a lot of people have kind of like shifted to the consensus now is kind of like Valadeo is going to win. I think that Salas will narrowly win. Valadeo, I think there's like a pattern, with overestimating and underestimating him. In 2018, no one expected him to lose, and then he did. And then in 2020, everyone expected him to lose, or not everybody, but most people expected him to lose, and he didn't. He actually won. Um, yeah, so in 20 yeah, and if I didn't say that right, 2018 he was supposed to win. And he did lose to TJ Cox, and I think that, Salas is such a strong candidate that I do think that he's going to be able to narrowly beat Valadeo, but I do think Christy Smith is going to come up short in California 27. In Colorado, we have the seventh district. Ed Perlmutter is retiring, but it's probably going to be fine. Um, the third might be interesting. Lauren Boebert's definitely going to win, but she's had a pretty good. She has a strong challenger, Adam Frisch, who's gotten a lot of money from national Democrats. Even though he really doesn't have a chance at winning this seat. It's Trump plus 8, and I think that Boebert will win by under 15, but still is she's going to win the 8th district. I'm going to move that to lean R. I'm not sure. I can't remember exactly what my previous race ratings are, but now it's lean R. I don't think that Democrats are going to win this district, and it's a pretty big bellwether. It's Biden plus 5, yeah, but the polls have been showing pretty good results for Barbara Kirkmeyer, and I think that we're going to see. I think the Joe O'Dea is going to help some Republicans in Colorado, but they're probably not going to have a very good year. I do think that they will win the swing district, though. But it could definitely be I could definitely be wrong about this, and I wouldn't be surprised if it flips in 2024 if it doesn't, go to the Democrats this year. Connecticut, the second is going to be likely. Um, the fifth has gotten really interesting. Jonna Hayes is in a really in a fight for her life against George Logan. We saw Emerson come out with this poll that showed Logan ahead. I don't really buy that, and I'm still going to go with my gut and say that it's a tilt. I'm going to still go with Hayes being favored, but by a lot less than I originally anticipated. And if Stefanowski does really good in the governor's race and Levy does pretty well against Blumenthal in the Senate race, I could see it being an upset. In Delaware, there's only one district and it's safe blue. Florida, there isn't much to talk about here. Stephanie Murphy and Charlie Crist districts are going to flip. Murphy is retiring and Crist already resigned. He was going to retire, but he resigned to focus on his gubernatorial campaign, which is going to go nowhere, sadly. Wish it would, but DeSantis is going to win that. And Maria Salazar is going to easily win her reelection. The trends in South Florida are too much for Democrats to overcome. So yeah, that's all I gotta say on Florida. Yeah. In Georgia, we just got the second district. Sanford Bishop's a really strong incumbent. It is kind of right trending, but at the same time, Warnock and Abrams are going to win it, at the top of the ticket pretty easily. And I think that Bishop is, he outran Biden in 2020. And I think that this will be a double-digit victory. Well, actually, it might not be because it shifts a little bit, but I don't know. I think it'll be like a 12-point victory. Um, but don't quote me on that. In Hawaii, just safe blue districts. Idaho, safe red. Illinois, we have a couple interesting districts. Um, the sixth, Sean Casten does seem to kind of be having a little bit of trouble, but I still think that, with Pritzker and Duckworth being at the top of the ticket, he's going to be all right. It's still Illinois at the end of the day, and this is a gerrymandered as hell map. The 13th, I think, will be lean. Um, yeah, I don't really know much about this district. I think it's Biden. It's a Biden district. Yeah, it is. It's Biden plus 11, and this could be a sleeper flip for the GOP if they have a good night. If they have a really good night, they're gonna have an all right. They're gonna have a pretty good night, but I don't. If they have like a pretty, and more than expected red wave or larger than expected red wave, might be competitive. The 17th, I could definitely see flipping Republican. Like Esther Joy King is a very good candidate, and Eric Sorensen is kind of, Sorensen isn't bad, but I think that King is, she's doing pretty well. She's got a large cash advantage, but it's still, and it isn't right trending, but it's still Biden +8. And so I think that, and Pritzker and Duckworth are probably going to win it at the top of the ticket, and that's probably going to barely push Sorensen over the finish line. Indiana, I have a bit of a hot take here. I've gone back and forth on this in the last month. I think Frank Mervin's going to lose, and that might confuse a couple of people that might surprise you. But Jennifer Ruth Green, I think, has been running a pretty good campaign. It's a pretty right trending district, and Mervin, I think, he tried to dig up some dirt on Ruth Green, and she didn't, or on Green, but it didn't really turn out too well. I think it just revealed some tragic stuff from her past, and I think that Indiana doesn't really have any competitive races this year. They have the Senate race, but that's going to be an easy GOP victory. Um, and yeah, I think that this might be a pretty surprising result, but I wouldn't be surprised if Mervin held on, but I think that my gut is telling me that the Republicans are going to gain this seat. In Iowa, the second and first districts are going to be likely our MMM is, Marionette Miller Meeks is going to easily win. So is Ashley Hinson. And I think that it's pretty safe to say that Sydney Axney is going to lean our race. I think that she's going to lose. She was already an underdog. She's in a Trump district. She did outperform the top of the ticket in 2020, but Zach Nunn's been a really strong opponent. He hasn't really been talking about abortion too much, which is, helpful. And honestly, Grassley and Reynolds are going to do all right at the top of the ticket. Although I do think, I've gotten a lot less confident in Grassley, but he's still going to win. But I do, he's obviously going to win all these districts, and so is Reynolds. I think Reynolds is especially going to help Republicans. And it's also just Iowa. It's super right trending, and actually only won by a point in 2020. So yeah, I could see it staying with Democrats if they are able to retain the House, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's pretty clear that Republicans are going to get the final Democrat in Iowa out. In Kansas, I was going to move this to tilt, but we had a pretty good poll for Sharice Davids in the New York from the New York Times upshot, I think, or from Siena College and the New York Times upshot. Collaborated on this one poll. Amanda Atkins could win, but I think that, Laura Kelly's really going to do well at the top of the ticket. I'm not sure if she's going to win or not. It's a toss up race. I'll get to it, in the next couple of days when I put up my final governor prediction. But I do think, it's a pretty left trending district. It's a lot less red or a lot less blue than the old district was, but I still think that Davids is a pretty clear favorite. And she has a pretty big fundraising advantage, so I think that she's going to be all right. Kansas might, I think also that abortion referendum like boosted Democrats' chances in Kansas by like a thousandfold. Might not translate to November because, we're not in August anymore, but I think that Kansas free is going to stay blue. Kentucky, all safe seats there. Louisiana, all safe seats. Maine, I'm not sure, but I think just based on partisanship, Bruce Poliquin nearly gets Jared Golden out of there. Golden really, the polls are showing a good sign for Golden, but the polls in Maine's second district are terrible. They, said that Biden and Trump were in a pretty competitive race in 2020. Trump won the district by 7 points. Golden was supposed to win by like 20 or so points, 25 points. He only won by like six. And, him winning it all in this district is impressive. But Poliquin, or yeah, Polquin, I can't remember if it's Poliquin or I think it's Poliquin. He's in Trump plus six district, and Golden's a strong incumbent. He's running, pretty far to the right of most Democrats. But I don't really think that there's like this isn't like a suburban moderate seat. Like this is still like a pretty rural Trumpy seat, and Golden's gonna do well, and he may even win. But I just think that the partisanship of, the state is, and I think Paul DePage being at the top of the ballot, ultimately it's going to be too much for him to overcome. Maryland, David Trone, I think, is a pretty clear favorite right now. Dan Cox is going to drag down the GOP at the top of the ticket, and Republicans have kind of given up on beating Trone. And yeah, I think that it could be competitive in the future. Maybe Trump wins by a little bit less, but I'd be pretty surprised if Republicans do knock him off this year. Massachusetts is all safe blue. And then Michigan, we've got quite a few competitive races. We have we got four competitive races actually. I'm gonna go over the third district first. And Peter Meyer got primaried out by John Gibbs. I think it's pretty clear to say that Hillary Schulten's going to beat Gibbs. She didn't do well against Meyer in 2020, but again, Meyer's an outperformer. And this district is super left trending. It's the Grand Rapids seat, and Gibbs really has been not really trying to appeal to these voters to the moderate voters here. And, he says that Democrats eat babies, which I think we can all agree is ridiculous. And so, like, it would be shocking to me if Gibbs does end up winning this. I think Schulten is going to win. She's going to, Gibbs's lackluster candidacy and the partisan shifting of the state is going to be too much for Republicans to hold on to the seat. If Meyer was the nominee, if they'd chosen Meyer, I think they would have won this. Probably be lean to likely are, but they didn't. And yeah. In the 8th district, Dan Kildee is probably going to win. Paul Jeungé is just a really bad candidate. He lost to Alyssa Slotkin in 2020, and then he got redistricted um, into Kildee's seat. And also, the Kildee name is like insanely well known in in this district. Kildee's father was a longtime representative, and this district is right trending. It's eventually going to flip red, but like I don't really see much reason why it would this year. I know it's Biden +2, but again, bad Republican, very popular Democrat. I think it all, and Michigan's also a state where, you have the abortion referendum on the ballot. And even if like Roe is like not like nearly as important as it seemed it was back in August, if it's not really that big nationwide, I still think that it's gonna play a pretty big role in Michigan since they actually have a referendum. And then we have two more districts. I'm going to go over Michigan 10 first. I almost moved to, I did want to put this in likely, but I think John James, he's going to win, and Carlo Marlinga has like no money. I think it's pretty clear to say that James is, a congressman, is going to be a congressman. It's is it a Biden district? I can't remember. Can't remember all these districts. It's a Trump district, and yeah, James is leading pretty by pretty large margins in the polls. I'm sorry for all these ads. I can't get rid of them. Um, and yeah, I think that overall, Republicans are probably going to win this seat. I would be pretty surprised if Democrats do pull it off. So yeah. And then finally, the seventh, I've gone back and forth on. I've been a little hesitant about characterizing this one. I think Slotkin's going to win, though. She has a pretty clear advantage, in fundraising, and I think Tom Barrett's a pretty bad candidate. He's got some scandals relating to, I think, trading with South um, Arabia, or maybe that was Jim Bognet in Pennsylvania. I think both of them have something to do with that. But either way, I think that, the abortion referendum is going to help Slotkin to narrowly hold on, even though she's barely in a Biden district. And, if it wasn't for the road, if it wasn't for the abortion ballot and, the abortion referendum and Barrett's candidacy, I'd probably have Slotkin losing easily. In Minnesota, the first district's going to go to the GOP, but Jeff Ettinger did pretty well in that House special election. Brad Finstad is like not that great of a candidate, but he's obviously going to win. Minnesota too. There's been a lot of like talk about the Green Party, or the not the Green Party, the Legal Weed Party, splitting the vote here. And it's actually kind of creepy how this the Green Party, or why do I keep saying the Green Party? Sorry, the Legal Weed Party killed, or not killed, but their nominee was unfortunately passed away after it happened 2 years ago in 2020. It's kind of a little spooky to think about that in this exact district it's happened to two different people. So yeah, but I think that Angie Craig is like a pretty clear favorite right now. I think that like the Dobbs decision is going to help Democrats here, and I think Tim Walz is also going to also is going to boost Angie Craig. So yeah, Mississippi, we don't have any competitive races there. Not in Missouri. In Montana, we're going to see the first district definitely go Republicans. Just a question of how much. And like Ryan Zinke is like not that great of a candidate. It's a Trump +7 district. I think Democrats should keep their eyes on it for the for future elections. If whenever their next like 2008 or 2018 year is, they should probably target it because it is shifting to the left. But at the end of the day, Republicans are definitely going to win it this year. In Nebraska, I think that the first will be under 10 points. Mike Flood's like not is not a very strong candidate, and Patty Panzine Brooks did a lot better than expected in that special election. But that was held 4 days after Rose, so I'm sure that she's lost a lot of her momentum. But I think she'll keep it under 15. And then the second district, Tony Vargas is a really good candidate, but Don Bacon is pretty much an electoral juggernaut here. I know it's a Biden +6 district, and it didn't really change due to redistricting, but I really still do think that, I think that Bacon being in a Republican midterm really helped him. I think he'll lose, in 2024 or 2026, whenever Democrats take the House back. But I really don't think that he's going to lose this year, and um, I think that he's, going to be able to hold on. He had a really bad opponent in 2020. Yes, and I think that it will be closer than his 5-point victory 2 years ago, but I still think that, just the amount of, his ability to just persuade so many independent voters that typically lean Democratic, to vote for him, it's really astonishing, honestly. It's very interesting about Don Bacon. But yeah, if there could be an upset here. I think Vargas is a really good candidate, and they should run him in the future. But I don't think that he's going to win. In Nevada, we got three competitive districts. The fourth, I think, is going to be likely, or not likely, lean. Stephen Horsford, I think, is a pretty clear favorite right now. And I think that there's a chance the Republicans do win all four Nevada seats, which would just be so ridiculous. But I do think that Horsford, despite Democrats not doing too well in Nevada, I do think that he's, going to win by, 3 or 4 points. Uh, Dina Titus, we've seen some interesting polling. We had a pretty bad result for her in Emerson College poll, which showed the Republican opponent, what's his name, Robertson, up by, uh, 12 points. I obviously don't think that's going to happen. I think that the Republicans or that Emerson's like really overestimating the GOP this cycle, but still like they're like the gold standard in Nevada. But I do think that Titus like is gonna narrowly get by. I do think that Susie Lee is gonna lose though, and the reason why is because I think Blackstock and Lombardo are gonna push April Becker over the finish line. It's a Biden +7 district. Yes, Cortez Masto is going to be on the ballot to help, Democrats down ballot with Hispanic voters, but still, like, it's pretty clear, like, after that Emerson poll and, after, John Ralston's analysis of the data in, Nevada, he's a very accurate analyst, and, like, disagreeing with him on Nevada is pretty much like political suicide, um, you know, so I think that Horsford and Titus will probably win, but I think that Lee is going to get dragged down and Republicans are going to win her seat. In New Hampshire, Ann Custer, I think, is a pretty clear favorite. I don't think it's going to be lean. It could be, but I almost considered moving it to lean D since Bolduc's been doing really well at the top of the ticket right now. I still think that Hassan wins for the record, but I could be wrong about that one. I've moved it back down to lean D. Custer, though, I think remains likely. Caroline Levitt, though, has been like doing surprisingly well against Chris Papas. It's a Biden +6 district, and the St. Anselm College put out a poll showing Levitt at 51% of the vote, leading Papas by 6 points, which was pretty kind of eye-catching, and it's pretty much made the race like functionally like a pure toss-up. But I do still think that like Hassan's going to narrowly pull Papas over the finish line. I think that abortion will help Democrats up here in New Hampshire, which is pretty socially libertarian. They're a pretty libertarian state, socially liberal but economically conservative. In New Jersey, I think that still Tom Malinowski is pretty clearly an underdog right now. He's got a lot of money, but he's a vast underperformer, and I could honestly see this being likely. But Tom Keene is, a pretty strong, and Tom Keene's like a pretty strong candidate for the GOP. I mean, of course, he's the son of I believe he's the son at least of Tom Keene, the former governor of New Jersey. I don't think that it's going to be likely because, like, I looked at the um, governor results in this district, and Chattarelli, like, despite him doing a lot better than people expected, only defeated Murphy here by like 6 points. So, yes, it's a Biden plus five district. Um, and Malinowski is like a really, really bad, and while, Malinowski is like a really big underperformer, I think that, like, just the fact that it's like a midterm and it's like a national, it's not like a low turnout election, like an off year. I think that, he still like got a lot of money. I think that that's going to make it under five, but it's closer to likely are than the toss up. I am rambling. I need to get done with this. Not that I don't like it, but you know what I mean. This is a lot. New Mexico, I think that these two districts are going to be likely. Not much to say there. Yvette Harrell, I think that she will lose in 2024. And I've heard that like the New Mexico early vote looks really bad for the GOP, but I think that Ron Chetty, he's going to win this district by quite a bit in the governor's race. But I still think he'll lose. But I think that he will drag Harrell over the finish line. She'll probably win by like two. Gabe Vasquez, I don't think is that great of a candidate. Like there was that good Siena College poll that showed him ahead, but and Yvette Harrell does for some reason did underperform Trump by a lot in the old district in 2020, and so that's a really bad sign for her. But I think that, New Mexico, still, this part of New Mexico is still pretty ancestrally Republican, I believe. And or it might not be. This might be like the South Texas or yeah area. Anyways, I'm rambling, but yeah, I think Harrell is the favorite. I would not be surprised if Democrats win this. I think this is a key race for them if they want to hold House control, but like I said, I don't think that they're going to. Oh, and yeah, by the way, Republicans now have the majority. They're at 219. Democrats are still at 195, but that's definitely not where they're going to be by the end of this prediction. New York, we have quite a few competitive districts here. Lee Zeldin's been doing really well at the top of the tick, and that's kind of made me change my mind about some of these House races. I think the 25th is going to be likely, but it'll still go to Democrats pretty easily. Lee Zeldin's district is going to be likely, probably. I think that, Zeldin's going to do really well on Long Island, and he's going to really help Republicans, with his messaging, get over the top. But I do think that Democrats are going to win like the all but one of these competitive races. They're going to win these two races. Thomas Suzy is retiring, but there's not a really good candidate there for the GOP. I don't think Kathleen Rice. This could be likely, but I think that just because it's like a Biden plus 14 district, but because Republicans like are doing so well in New York, because Zeldin is really giving Hochul a run for her money, even though she's still probably is still like pretty clearly the favorite. I still think that that will be enough to get this under 5%. I think that, Sean Patrick Maloney is in a bit of a tough spot, but I still think that he's gonna win by a lean margin. Pat Ryan, I could see it being likely, but I think that, the down ballot effect of, Zeldin is gonna bring him under 5%, but I would not be surprised if it was likely. And then the 22nd district, Republicans have kind of surged in this district. I had it in the Democratic column last time, I believe. But Francis Connell is like not really doing that well. There have been quite a few polls that show him losing by pretty big amounts. This is it's a pretty it's a Biden plus eight district, but and John Katko is retiring, which does hurt the Republicans here. But like Brandon Williams, I think is the pretty clear favorite in this district right now. And I could see the 19th being lean for Democrats, but I think just out of caution, I'll put it as tilts. Although I think that it's pretty clear that are not super clear because it's a tilt characterization, but I do still think that what's his name, Josh Riley is going to beat Mark Molinaro. This district is not as blue as the old 19th district is or district was uh when the one that Molinaro ran in for that special election in the summer. So yeah. North Carolina, I could see the first being lean if Democrats like have like an abysmal turnout operation, but I think Sherry Beasley is going to help Democrats at the top of the ticket. I think G.K. Butterfield retiring does hurt Democrats, but I do think that like they're still going to win this district. I think it's just like a question of how much, unless I'm terribly wrong. But yeah, it's like Biden plus 10, I think. So Biden plus 10, Biden plus 9. Yeah, and I think that it'll be like Biden. I think it'll be like it'll go to the Democrats by like 5 or 6 points. 13th district though, Bo Hines is doing pretty well. Wiley Hickel is like he's not doing very well in the polling. By the way, I thought that Hickel was a female or was a woman. So yeah, I'm sorry about that. But yeah, now I just like learned a couple of days ago it's a guy. So yeah, sorry about that. But Beasley is gonna do well in this district at the top of the ticket, but I think that she may still lose it if she has a pretty bad night. She's obviously gonna lose, but at this rate. But I think that Hines is like I kind of underestimated him in some senses, and I think that the turnout operation in North Carolina is not really where it needs to be for Democrats to have a really good night. So I do think the 13th another bellwether district is going to go to the GOP. North Dakota is going to be really red. Ohio, we have quite a few districts here. The 13th, I think, is lean. This is Tim Ryan's district. And, Ryan, has been really doing really well against JD Vance, but, he's down in the polls by a lot more than Biden was in 2020 at this rate. And I don't think there'll be as big of a polling miss in Ohio for the Senate race as there was 2 years ago, but I do think that's going to drag Democrats down, although Ryan will help Democrats, at the top of the ticket. But I do think, Republicans have the pretty clear advantage to win this working class seat without Ryan there. First district, I could still see Shabbat winning, but I do think that just because like it's so left trending and Shabbat's like not really that moderate of an incumbent, I know that that kind of goes against my logic for Don Bacon because Bacon's kind of been pretty hasn't been really all that moderate on the issue of abortion, but at least he voted to certify the 2020 election results and he's called out Trump. And yeah, I think that Shabbat, only outperformed Trump by 3 points in the district in 2020 in the district that Trump won by four. Now it's a Biden plus 8 district or Biden plus 9 district. Actually, it's almost Biden plus 9. He'll outperform by a lot, but Greg Landsman, I think, is like he's a city councilman and he's probably going to win. I think Politico moved this race to lean D recently. So I do think, even though we haven't had a lot of polling here, I do think that long-term trends are just going to be too much for Shabbat to overcome. I know this is a hot take, but I think the captor's gonna lose. I know that like Majewski was pretty much abandoned by the national GOP, but the fact that it's such a right trending district and with Ryan kind of falling in the Senate race, he was probably not going to win it anyway. But now it's like kind of looking like really concerning for Ryan because he's already down by 4 points, and like a month ago that's what I expected him to lose by. And so, yeah, I think that Copter, she's gonna come really close, and I would not be surprised if I was wrong, but like I do not want to bet like against Republicans in Ohio and working class seats because like that is like like the equivalent of like trying to like that's like a task that like seems like so likely to fail. It's not even worth trying. I could very well see her winning, but I don't want to bet on it right now, and I think Majewski is a really bad candidate, but you know, I do think that the national, partisanship of the district is going to help him get nearly over the finish line. Copter hasn't really run a competitive race in years, if ever. So I do think she goes down. Oklahoma's going to be all red. Oregon, we have some interesting districts here. Democrats have been doing better in the governor's race, and you'll see that in my final prediction. The sixth district, there's been a lot of hype about this. I don't really think it's going to be all that close, but Drazen may, do well here at the top of the ticket. The fifth, I'm going to move it into lean. Jamie McLeod Skinner has not been doing well against Lori Chavez de Remer. It's Biden plus 9, but Kurt Schrader was like the guy that was who could have survived this. It's an open race, and incumbency always helps in these kinds of districts that are more competitive. That's why I kind of make the argument that Dan McKee's not really that endangered in Rhode Island, even though on the surface it looks really bad for him. But yeah, I think that Schrader, being kicked out is really, Democrats are gonna very much regret, renominating him. I think, it was a mistake for Oregon to do that, and yeah, that's why they may lose the governor's race as well. But we'll have to see. Pennsylvania, this 12th and the 6th have look more competitive than before. The consensus is that they're likely to. I'm not really going to talk about them too much. Pennsylvania 7, I think that Wild's going to lose by a lean margin. It's a pretty, it's she was really she was the only Democrat who really got screwed over in redistricting. And I think that she's in a Biden plus like point 0.6 district, and she's got a pretty decent challenger. And yeah, I don't think that she's going to be able to survive. If she does, that's really good for Democrats, and that means that they're going to win the House, but that's probably not going to happen. Brian Fitzpatrick is like in a pretty competitive district, but it's Fitzpatrick. He's a solid outperformer, and he may even win by a safe margin at the end of the day if things go really well for Republicans in the House. Matt Cartwright, I think, is going to win. He's, in a pretty right trending district, but he won a Trump plus 4 district in 2020 by, actually almost 4 points. And so, like, he'll lose eventually, probably just due to the trends, but it's Trump plus, it's now blue where it's Trump plus free. And, Jim Bognet is, like, not a very good opponent. And Fetterman and Shapiro are going to win it probably. Maybe not Fetterman, but Shapiro will definitely win it against Mastriano. And yeah, I think that Cartwright's gonna survive. And I think that the 17th is like really close. Connor Lamb should have ran for this district, and I'm nervous that he didn't. I wanted Lamb to be the nominee for Senate, but that was never gonna go anywhere with Fetterman. Um, but I do think Delujo like is gonna narrowly eke it out thanks to Fetterman and Shapiro. This is Fetterman's home district, so like even if he loses, he'll probably carry this district. And so, yeah, I think that, but I still, I think the Democrats are going to have an okay night in Pennsylvania in terms of the House elections, but I do think that, like, Wild is pretty clearly going to lose at this point. Rhode Island, there's been, I've been pretty, interested in this district. Alan Fung has run a really interesting campaign, um, in this district. But again, at the end of the day, Seth Magaziner is like is a very strong candidate. He's a statewide elected official, and Fung like is still running in like a federal race, and it's Rhode Island. It's trending kind of rightward. It is trending rightward, but not really. It's like Kansas trends. It's not really that apparent, and I do think that Democrats will hold on to it by a lean margin, but it is one of the more like sleepy races for Republicans. South Carolina, no competitive races there, nor is there any in South Dakota with the one district. Tennessee, the fifth is going to be likely Jim Cooper's retiring, and it's Trump plus 11, I think. It could be safe, but, I think that just, to be safe, it's going to probably be likely. Texas, the 15th district, I think, will be lean. I don't understand why 538 has the race as a toss up or even tilting towards the Democrats. 538 has a really weird House forecast. Like, I'm pretty, like, I'm cool, like, chill with 538. Like, I'm not crazy, like, conservative cowboy who just, like go like and Red Eagle who just like to like trounce on freaking poor Nate Silver. But yeah, I don't understand why Republicans are not favored here in the 538 forecast. They're going to win the district. It's very right trending. South Texas is really going to be hard for Democrats in the future. I still think that Myra Flores loses. And I did want to put this in Tilt E, but like it's still Biden plus 16. And like there's like been barely any polling from this district. Like there's been like a sudden narrowing up of the race, and like Gonzalez hasn't really had like a Vincente Gonzalez hasn't really run a very good campaign, but he's still like in a pretty blue district, and it's Flores won with an insanely low turnout, and that's not going to happen this time around. It's the general election. And yeah, I don't see her winning. Cuellar, I'm really conflicted about his district, but I think I'm going to keep it as Tilt D just because Cassie Garcia is like not that great of a candidate. But with Cuellar's, barely winning his primary, I could definitely see him losing. Even to someone like Garcia, it's just Republicans are doing so well in South Texas and are really surging. But I think Cuellar, like, he outperformed Biden by quite a bit in the old district in 2020 down ballot. So I do think that he'll, narrowly win, and Beto O'Rourke's probably going to do all right in South Texas. Utah, it's all safe red there, and same in Vermont with its sole district. I can't speak. In Virginia, Jennifer Wexton's going to win. I don't understand the whole hype about Hung Cao winning. He's got an interesting campaign. I'll give him that. He's a very interesting figure, but I don't think that it's really going to go anywhere. The seventh, Spanberg, I think, is, in pretty good shape right now. I think that Lee Vega could, pull off an upset here, but it's a Biden plus 6 district. It's a lot bluer than the old one. And Spanberger's, like, pretty well known here. She's a pretty moderate Democrat. And, like, the abortion issue, like Vegas, like kind of Todd Aikened herself into a defeat at this point. So I do think that like Spanberger's going to win by probably like 2 or 3 points. Yeah, I think that the issue of Dobbs is going to really help Democrats here. It's a really wide area, yes, but it's got some areas of Fairfax, of Northern Virginia, and it goes all the way down to the suburbs of Richmond. So I think that Spanberger's probably going to win. Can't say the same about Elaine Luria though. She's doing really well. She's in a really tight race, and but Jen Kiggins is a pretty good candidate for the GOP. And, I do think that January 6th is like not as big of an issue as I originally made it in her district because like suburban voters and moderate voters support the January 6th select committee or investigative committee. But still, I think that like, she's in a Biden plus free district. She did outperform Biden, but like in 2020, but barely. And it's a much redder year, and I do think that she's going to probably lose very narrowly, but like it's a very toss-up-y district, but I'm still gonna bet against her. In Washington, the third district, Joe Kent, I could see like being a vulnerable incumbent in the future in 2024 potentially because he's probably going to alienate some voters here. Jamie Herrera Butler got primaried out, of course. She was one of the anti-Trump Republicans in the House. I think that Kim Schreier is a pretty clear favorite in Washington 8. I might move it down to tilt just because Tiffany Smiley's been doing pretty well in this district, but it's Biden plus 7. And yeah, I think that I don't really see this district flipping, so I'm going to keep it as lean D, but I wouldn't be shocked if it was closer. West Virginia, going to be safe red all across the board. And finally, in Wisconsin, and yeah, never mind. I was about to say something. This is wrong. Yeah, I have to slow down. This is Ron Kynes' district, and it's pretty right trending. He won by just 3 points in 2020 after he won by 18 points in 2018. Uh, if Democrats, in Kynes retiring, the Democrat Brad Pfaff has really gotten, the National Party's pretty much given up on this district, and for good reason. I mean, Derek Van Orden is pretty clearly the favorite. It's Trump plus 5, and it's very right trending. Johnson and Michaels are gonna do very well here, unless we have like a blue wave in Wisconsin, which would be pretty surprising, honestly. So I mean, even if Democrats are able to hold the House, they're probably going to lose the seat. If they don't if they somehow hold on to it, I would be shocked, and that would be like an absolute blue wave. But that's not going to happen. It's very right trending, very working class. So yeah, I think it's got a lot of the driftless area, and Barnes and Evers are going to do pretty badly there. And then Wyoming, sadly Liz Cheney got kicked out, but it doesn't really matter because it's such a red state and it's the at-large district. So Republicans are going to win there. Unfortunately, it's not Cheney though. Um, and yeah, I think that that's it for the video, guys. In the final map, we have 226 Republicans and 209 Democrats. Republicans win about how many is that? I think they're at 210 right now because they got a couple of empty seats, or it might be 212. So Republicans win around a net gain of about 10 to 15 seats. Democrats hold their own in quite a few races. They steal some from the GOP, but they still come out short. And this is pretty much what I'm expecting. This is what I've expected for a long time. But Democrats, they still they don't have a realistic shot at keeping the House at this point, but they can keep it they can keep the GOP House majority small enough to take it from them in 2 years if they have a good night in 2024. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Again, this is the final prediction for the 2022 House election. So if I'm wrong about any of these districts, which I'll probably be wrong about a few of them, in either direction. I'm probably overestimating Democrats, honestly. um, but yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Come back to this video after the election to roast me on all the seats I got wrong. Hopefully I don't, but I have a feeling I'm definitely gonna get some wrong. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Share the video, turn on notifications so you don't miss another one of my videos, particularly my final Senate and governor election predictions, which will be coming out in the near future before election day. Make sure to turn on notification, or I've already said that. Check out my channel, my non-political channel, Interactor127, and my comrade's channel, Growlings666. We've had a long road here, guys. The midterms are finally here in just a couple of days. Going to be really interesting to watch, and watch how wrong I am about all this. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time when I talk about all things politics. See